That was a crazy sell-off into earnings. It's Apple, Amazon, right? G-Gert? Who could have seen that coming? Not you with your calls. To be fair, they did get 36. They really tried. Huh. Well, Amazon just reversed the day's losses. Apple, not so much. Or Apple's earnings aren't out yet, right? I foresee a day of vol crush ahead. If NFP comes in hot, I think this could be the pullback needed to start the rip upwards. Maybe. We've pulled back sufficiently. So, yeah, 5,700. Pretty big move down today. 170 points. Definitely a failure. There's still a bit of a support here, but we fell below it into close, so not sure we're going to recover that in the overnight session. Obviously, Amazon's earnings must be pretty decent. It's now up 2% on the day, which is pretty significant given how hard it dropped over the last 2 days. But I don't think we get any news out of Apple for a little while. Intel beat, nice. Oh, you have lucky you. Looks like commodities down, despite the big pump in oil at the end of the day there with the Iran via Iraq threats against Israel. Apparently they're planning another attack, which increases the chance of a retaliatory strike and further escalation. So we got some risk premium priced in immediately to oil. We may see oil climb up on that increased risk over the next few days, and if there is a realization of any kind of attack against Israel, then obviously that would probably move oil prices even further. Dollar came down today, pretty decent amount, slipped the 104 support and fell down to 103.90. I think largely on like the slightly softer like PCE year over year. Obviously, seeing PCE fall towards the Fed target is gonna not be bullish for the dollar. Although core PCE stayed flat, and super core, I think month over month, actually moved up a little bit. But it's still too early in the reporting of these to see any significant moves in inflation since the Fed cuts. We probably won't start to see the effect of that until December's prints. But it is interesting that the stickier parts are still staying quite sticky. They don't seem to be moving very much. I also think EU inflation climbed, which was helpful for the euro quite a bit. I think the euro is up 22 points against the dollar today. Correlation broke down really hard after the miss in tech earnings. Obviously, with the vol crush following Microsoft and Meta's earnings, a lot of those positions were just going to drop off. As I think Microsoft lost about 5% today, which was pretty significant, and for a market cap weighted index, very, very significant given Microsoft's size. However, they've spent the entirety of the day trying to turn correlation back around, and it looks like they did get a beat on Amazon, which is not insignificant, but we'll have to see how Apple's earnings look, which are probably significantly more important tonight. QQQ fell off really hard, as did Breadth. So really no winners today. Everything down across the board, vol up. USD JPY trimmed just a tiny bit, back under 8x, and also trimmed a little bit more on the short end with the 6 and 3 month leverage falling. Forward yield on volatility into the end of the day closing out around 10.39%, which is significantly over the Fed's fund rate. That encourages additional positioning into long vol. Bond vol up, decent drop in bonds today, but not very much. And we did see 3-month correlation pick up in line with finally a little bit with the increase in bond vol. It's been falling since October 7th. So an interesting move there into the end of the month, which did close substantially lower and closed below support, and I'll cover that in a second. Skew still pushing up into the end of yesterday, so probably see a lot more tail risk hedging come onto the chain today with the 2% drop. 41.94% of the S&P over its 20-day moving average, and a big breaking correlation between VX and VIX, as they both moved up exceptionally hard, but VX up 8%, VIX up 13%. So a little bit more near-term volatility expectations rising. Fed fund futures still hovering right around 0.75 cuts, although it did dip earlier near 0.72. Not really any significant change there, which should be noted because that could mean that we see a lot of today's price action broadly across bonds, currency, and equity is mean revert. The 210 spread also not changing very much, still just slightly positive 12.2% here. So a little bit of a drop this morning, but nothing too crazy. Or, well, end of day yesterday, and then kind of just stagnating out. NFP tomorrow will have a significant effect probably on all of these metrics. It's by far the most important labor print alongside unemployment, which is expected to rise slightly on falling non-farms, proving out that the last non-farms print, which beat analyst estimates by a very significant amount, was an outlier and not an indicator of current conditions. However, if NFP does beat again, analysts also once again have very low estimates. That will be not only stronger for inflation, but for the dollar, and positive for yields. Out here, we tested almost tested the 50 MA in the close there at the end of the day. Generally, this can act as a bit of a reversal point, not always a strong one, and I would say if we were to get a little bit of a relief rally, maybe we move up to the EMA 30, which is around like 57.60-ish. This is a failure. We do have now a confirmation of a breakdown in the trend. However, out on the weekly time frames here, there's still quite a ways to go down before we get stronger confirmation. So we do have the bear signal at 57.67. However, this wouldn't confirm a reversal on the weekly unless we fell below 56.69, and the same is true out on the monthly. So if we got to the 1 month, October closing red is definitely indicative of more of a sell-off moving forward. But losing the 55, 56, 69, 67 level, which we did test at the low of October, still important to confirm that we are in fact breaking down and maybe going to experience a correction. The last couple of corrections that we got, both in August and September, reversed back by the end of the month, and so weakness into the early part of November could end up being a very strong finish to the month of November, and we'd be looking towards probably the long-term trend there that you see to the downside on that yellow line, around 54, 46, 50, like 54, 40, 480, 486 for a reversal point for that price action. And that should be kind of close to where delta neutral is right now. Delta neutral will move if we move down into that range. Did you mention NQ? We could look at it. NQ got a little bit of a bounce there with Amazon earnings, but it didn't retain the entirety of it. Tested back at 2100. Does look like it's starting to form a little bit of a floor here. I don't know what guidance and everything's going to look like, but if that looks slightly positive, I could see it moving back up to 2200, but reversing the prior day's drop back towards like 2400 seems kind of unlikely overnight. If NFP is really bullish, then maybe, but otherwise, The heat map was fire. Pretty cool. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you bright and early tomorrow. Later, guys.